Hi everybody, my name is Hope Mkhumba and I play for Chilton. Today I'm gonna present to you a game where Chilton 1 play Oldham 1, and it was the Summer League 2011. And in this game it's Matthew Searles playing on board 1 against Hope Mkhumba of Chilton Club playing black. And the game proceeded as Matthew played e4, I played c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, and bishop b5. And as it is the game is transposed into Sicilian, the Moscow variation. So I decided to complicate things a little bit, and I went for knight d7. Matthew proceeded with queen d4. Then I paused for a while, and I thought maybe queen a5. And when we're analyzing, Matthew almost thought that he had made a blunder, but he realized that he couldn't lose his bishop because he's got knight c3. I played a6, trying to get a little bit of tempo and chasing the bishop away and giving a little bit of options. Whether he can go and take on d7 or retreat with the bishop c4, maybe bishop a4, idea of bishop b3. If not, maybe bishop e2 and transpose it into a quiet game. But Matthew played bishop c4, and immediately the bishop is threatening my d5 square, e6 and f7. As you can see, I've still got a little bit of weakness here and I'm really lagging behind in development. So to counter all this, I played e6, and this move prevents intrusion on d5. So Matthew went on with 0-0 castling, and as you can see, Matthew's got a lot of space and is threatening to upset my center there. So he's got moves like e5, the rook coming to e1, the other rook coming to d1, and bishop d2, and is really vast development there. So he's got a little bit of options. So the game proceeded, and I played knight gf6, developing quietly, and I'm still really lacking development here. I'm lagging behind. So Matthew went on bishop b3, and I felt a little bit relieved here because it's one of the moves which is not, it's a precaution move and it's not threatening anything at this meantime. So I decided to play bishop e7, and the game looks a little bit of equal like now, because all the major threats, they look like they've been solved. Matthew played rook e1, I castled, then Matthew played bishop d2, and as you can see, it's threatening knight d5 and taking my bishop, exchanging the bishop on e7, then the bishop on d2 get a score of bishop g5 with a good pin, and the rook on a1 comes to d1, and I'll get a little bit of a cramped position and with the threat of losing my d6 pawn. So I played queen c7 immediately. And I've got ideas of like bringing the pawn to b5, and on the other hand I'm protecting d6 and e5. So like Matthew paused for a little while and he was thinking of playing e5, but as we had analyzed, he couldn't play e5 because I would take on e5 for the pawn. He takes with his knight on e5, then I've got bishop c5, and with only queen f4 to place his queen, then bishop d6, lose the knight immediately. So Matthew couldn't go for that one, so he decided to go for rook a d1, and opportunity to play b5. So while I had played b5, I have the idea of bringing the bishop to d7, and all my rooks, they'll be communicating. So I'll bring the bishop b7 on all these rooks. Now they've got communication in scope, and after that almost all the pieces of mine are developed. So then Matthew had something else. He played bishop g5, and as you can see, he's still going for the d6 pawn because of its weakness. But nevertheless, I went for bishop b7, putting pressure on his e4 pawn, and this knight f3. So like I've got minor threats there. So the game progresses, and Matthew played a4, and paused for a little bit, and I was thinking like, has he changed his motives now to upset my sender with e5 and getting, maybe trying to gain the pawn on d6? But like a4, it came as a surprise move to me, but like I didn't have a lot of options, because b5 would lose me the pawn. So I had to exchange on a4. Then he took with a knight. He couldn't take with a bishop, because I would get a little bit of tempo when my knight on d7 goes c5, firing that bishop, and that would be a good square. So like knight a4, it really prevents a lot of things, and it's got scope. It's still putting pressure on my b6 here, still putting pressure on my b6 square and c5. I can't just place any piece there. So knight a4 came as a good move. So the game proceeded, and I played rook fd8, protecting the pawn on d6, as this pawn somehow it can get weak. So he proceeded with rook d3, and I paused for a while, and I was thinking like, maybe he's got ideas of bringing the rook here, like an upset, and maybe getting a counter attack. Wasn't ready for this move, so I thought like maybe he could bring his another rook from e1 to d1 and put pressure on d6. So nevertheless, I developed normally, and I put rook on ac8. The rook on c8. Then he played rook c3. So now he's threatening to take my queen, like gain exchange, and I've got really two moves which I can play here. It's queen b8 and queen a5. So I looked at it, and queen b8, it didn't look like it was offering anything. Didn't look like it was offering anything, queen b8. So I went for queen a5. And I went for queen a5. So like queen a5, now I'm threatening new threats. I've got e1. I'm threatening new threat, the bishop on g5, and e1. They're under serious threat from the queen. So the game proceeded. So as you can see, all I need in this position is to bring my knight on e5, and like things will be changing, like changing hands now. Well, like I've been defending the rest of the game, and now I've got a initiative. I've got something to concentrate on. Rook on e1 and bishop on g5. So the game proceeded. Rook takes c8 and rook takes c8. Then he played h3. So this move came as a surprise to me, because it gave me all the opportunity where I can play knight e5 in peace. So I thought maybe the move he was supposed to worry about was knight e5, but he was worrying like of the back rank check and things like that. So the game proceeded. I played knight e5, and now I've got serious threats. I've got serious threat, like knight takes f3 check, and this rook on e1 is weak, and bishop on g5 is weak. So like I think a good response could be bishop d2 and maybe queen b5, and the game looks drawish. And if he had proceeded with this variation, so nevertheless he played knight d2 and still remained cramped and pinned. So like his immediate threat was solved. So I went for the knight c6, threatening his knight on d5, threatening his queen on d4. I mean, then so as you can see, I still got major threats here: knight on d2, rook on e1, and bishop g5. So he played queen e3, the only move, and I thought of other ideas. So I played knight g4. And then he had to take with his pawn, and he played bishop g5. And the game as it is now, I managed to get a pair of bishops, and so he chased my bishop away, f4, and I had option of playing bishop to d8 and bishop to e7, but I thought maybe f6 had ideas of putting pressure on d4 and on b2. And as you can see, like the whole setup, I need to get my knight on b4 and creating major threats. So like all these 2 pawns, they look isolated, and for the purpose of Sicilian it was working well for me. So I was thinking like maybe you could play knight c4, but nevertheless maybe he was a little bit worried of like concentrating on the king side. Maybe he wanted to get things moving. Then he played knight f3. So when he played knight f3, oh, it came to me as a shock, because it didn't take a look like moves like knight d4. Like, so from knight d4 I'm threatening major threats here, and I'm threatening to gain material. So like after knight d4, he played king f2, which comes to me as a blunder. So after king f2, I played knight takes c2, forking the queen and the rook. And on the other hand, he doesn't have time. On the other hand, he doesn't have time to take, like on c2, because my rook will come and you will have serious material loss. So he thought of something, queen b6, threatening exchange. Maybe his game could be long lived, but the move which he didn't see coming was bishop d4, check, and from there everything collapses. So like when he played I played bishop d4, it's a check, needs to respond. So he played like knight d4, and I did queen e1 check, queen f3, and I'm threatening a lot of things. I'm not even threatening material. This time I'm going for the king, and it was bishop e4 checkmate. So thank you everybody for watching the game. I hope you're gonna watch this channel for